Number 7. Ford Pinto. In 1974, the Ford Pinto became one of the best-selling cars in America, with 360,688 units sold that year, the best-selling subcompact in the country. That figure alone places the Pinto in American driveways more thoroughly than almost any other vehicle of the decade's first half. Ford developed the Pinto on an accelerated schedule to compete with the Volkswagen Beetle and the rising tide of Japanese imports, and in the early years of its production, it did exactly what it was designed to do: low purchase price, good fuel economy, and a size that made it practical for the urban and suburban driving that defined American daily life. When the 1973 oil crisis hit, the Pinto was positioned perfectly, and buyers responded in the numbers the 1974 sales figure confirms. Internal crash testing showed that the fuel tank could rupture and ignite in certain rear impact scenarios, and the civil litigation that followed gave the Pinto a historical identity that exists alongside its sales record. In the mid-1970s, before that identity fully formed, the Pinto was simply the car an enormous number of American families had just bought and were driving every day. Number 6. Ford Maverick. The Ford Maverick launched in the spring of 1969 as a 1970 model priced under $2,000, and Ford built its entire marketing campaign around that number. It worked. The Maverick approached the record-setting pace of the original Mustang's debut and easily outsold the Mustang's own 1970 figures that year, which were under 200,000 units. Total North American production of the Maverick reached approximately 2.1 million units across its run. Unlike the Pinto and the Chevrolet Vega, its two most direct economy car competitors, the Maverick built a reputation as a genuinely reliable vehicle, one that attracted a loyal following that included drag racers who appreciated the lightweight body and the available V8 options. The 1973 oil crisis increased Maverick sales rather than damaging them, as buyers reconsidering larger vehicles found in the Maverick a domestic option that didn't carry the same uncertainty as the newer Pinto. The Maverick is at number 5 because for the first half of the decade, it was the Ford that practical American families chose when they wanted something smaller than a Galaxy but didn't want to move all the way down to a subcompact. Number 5. Ford Mustang II. The Ford Mustang II arrived for the 1974 model year at almost exactly the moment the oil crisis made smaller cars suddenly essential, and the timing, more than anything else about the car itself, is why Mustang II's sales figures looked the way they did. The downsized Mustang shared much of its engineering with the Pinto, a fact that enthusiasts of the original Mustang did not receive warmly, but that American buyers responded to with their wallets at exactly the moment it mattered most. Ford sold 385,993 Mustang IIs in 1974, a contrast so stark with the larger Mustangs of 1971 through 1973 that it became one of the clearest examples of how completely the oil crisis rewrote American car buying priorities overnight. The Mustang II was by any measure that mattered to 1971 Mustang owners smaller and less powerful. It was also, to millions of buyers in late 1973 and 1974, exactly the right car at exactly the right time. The Mustang II is at number 5 because its sales success captures something this list shows. In the 1970s, the cars that were everywhere were not always the cars enthusiasts loved. They solved the problem American families actually had.
Number 4. Ford Gran Torino. Ford's Torino and Gran Torino sold in substantial numbers throughout the decade, with annual production regularly exceeding several 100,000 units, among the most commercially significant mid-sized cars Ford produced, regardless of its cultural legacy. That cultural legacy arrived in 1975 when a television show called Starsky and Hutch put a bright red 1975 Gran Torino with a white vector stripe on screens across America every week. The striped tomato, as it became known, was so popular that Ford built a special edition run of 1,000 Starsky and Hutch Torinos for sale to the public in 1976, a number that represents a tiny fraction of the Gran Torino's actual production, but an enormous fraction of its cultural footprint. The standard Gran Torino, in two-door hardtop and four-door sedan form, was one of the most common mid-size American cars on the road through the first half of the decade, Powered by 351, 400, or 460 cubic-inch V8s that gave it the comfortable highway presence mid-decade buyers expected. The Gran Torino is at number 4 because in 1976, in driveways across the entire country, it sold in numbers that no other Ford passenger car of the decade came close to matching. Number 3. Ford LTD. The Ford LTD was the full-size Ford that competed directly with the Chevrolet Impala and Caprice throughout the decade, a large, comfortable American sedan that sold in the hundreds of thousands annually and occupied the driveways of the same American families Chevrolet was simultaneously pursuing. Ford positioned the LTD as a refinement step above the standard Galaxy, with advertising that emphasized quiet, isolated interiors at a price the American middle-income family could reach. Road tests of the period noted the LTD's interior quietness as a genuine engineering achievement relative to its full-size competitors. The 351 and 400 cubic-inch V8 options gave it the power that American family car buyers expected as standard. The LTD's styling updated through the decade as buyers expected. Fins gave way to cleaner lines, then to the formal Landau rooflines of the mid-1970s. In the years when Chevrolet's full-size line was outselling Ford's, the LTD was the car in the driveway of the family that had chosen Ford, not because it differed dramatically from its Chevrolet competitor, but because that family had always bought Fords. Number 2. Ford Granada. The Ford Granada arrived for the 1975 model year with an advertising campaign built around a single audacious line. What looks like the newest Cadillac and is priced like the newest Volkswagen? American buyers, in numbers that confirmed the marketing had landed exactly as intended, treated that question as an instruction. In its first 3 years on the market, Ford sold 970,000 Granadas, nearly half of the model's total production across its entire run. Sales peaked in 1976 at 548,784 units, placing the Granada among the best-selling passenger cars in the United States that year, a figure few buyers in 1975 would have predicted for a car built on a 1960s Falcon chassis. The Granada was built on the chassis of the 1960s Ford Falcon, mechanically related to the original Mustang, but styled with European-influenced lines that Ford's marketing positioned against Mercedes-Benz, a positioning that automotive historians have generally agreed was more successful as marketing than as engineering. The Granada is at number 3 because in 1976, in driveways across the entire country, it sold in numbers that no other Ford passenger car of the decade came close to matching.
Number 1. The Ford F-Series. The Ford F-Series did not become the best-selling vehicle in America until 1985, but the 1970s were the decade in which that future became inevitable. Throughout the decade, the F-Series built the reputation, the dealer network loyalty, and the production scale that would make 1985 possible, establishing itself as the truck that American contractors, farmers, and tradespeople chose with the consistency that no passenger car on this list could match across every region of the country simultaneously. The F-100 and F-150 balanced payload capacity with usability that made the F-Series the practical choice for a significant portion of the American workforce, present on construction sites and farm driveways across rural America. While the Pinto, the Granada, and the Gran Torino generated sales figures and television cameos, the F-Series was quietly becoming the vehicle more of America depended on for work than any car on this list. The F-Series is at number 1 because the 1970s were the decade when the truck that would dominate American sales for 40 years was already becoming a fixture in rural communities, on construction sites, and in working-class driveways across the country.